I think people are fixated on the '60s because of the fashion and the culture exploded all at the same time. So if you went from '63 to '73, there's a marked difference.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Stylistic. Now,
You're right. Well, I don't know. Would they
style
not-
is stagnant. Style doesn't move anymore. If you look at early episodes of Sopranos, or you look at some now, that that decade doesn't seem to have been noted. There's no,
Well,
you went
there's
from
some truth to it.
62 to 72, and like Anchorman had big sideburns, and Congressman
That's true.
had blown out
Congressman
hair.
had blown out hair. You're
Yeah.
right about that. You're right. I mean, there is a couple of things that I've always thought. The hip kind of died. The whole idea of hip died because now everybody's tattooed and has piercings and like what?
That's the
So
only thing.
everybody
more ink.
looks like
That's
an
the only
outlaw.
thing you could tell.
Everybody looks like an outlaw and they're not really.
Right.
People back then who looked like outlaws were outlaws.
And so this is like the suburban ripple of what was going on.
You mean what we're going through now?
The characters in your movie,
Or the suburban ripple.
they're affected. They're not as intense. They're not not the weather.
Well, I feel that now. I feel most people.
Carmichael or something.
Yeah, I mean, most of us at this table. I mean, we probably all vote. Did you really participate in the election? Did you?
Yeah.
Are you out there protesting the G7? No, we're not really doing that. People just live their lives, whatever they. I mean, people in the Civil War. Most people just got
Right.
by.
Excuse me. What changes were there to your creative process, if any, making a movie instead of fashioning a TV show?
To my creative process.
If any.
Well, I took a different way. During The Sopranos or any series that I would do, you have this thing called you can't write it all by yourself, right? There's 13 episodes, and you can, I guess, write it all by yourself, but nobody does. And people have done it with not great results. But in England, they do it. I don't know how they do it.
It's only 6 episodes there, that's why.
Oh, that's what
It's a little smaller there.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So.
Maybe 10.
Maybe. Yeah.
So you can't do that until you have a staff of people and you have a writer's room and you sit around and you talk and theoretically you come up with the stories together, the actual story structure. And then if this was a writer's room and I was in charge of the writer's room, for example, if I was the creator of the show, I'd be saying yay or nay to any particular idea you might have. And I'd say, well, that's good, let's go with that. And we'd work days on that and developing that idea. We'd write it down, we'd write it on a board, we'd type it up. We'd do 3 of those, an A story, a B story, and a C story. And then if I said to you, well, that was your idea, so you should write this script, that you would take that outline that was already done for you, fairly detailed, and you'd go write the script. You'd go turn it into a teleplay. If I said, no, she should write that, I think she should write that because I don't know what, she's from Detroit. And it takes place in Detroit. Then she would take that outline and would go write the script. That's the way I always did it. There was always a solid outline. This time I decided to say, I'm not going to do an outline. I'm just going to sit down and write fade in and see what happens. And that's what happened. So that was a real changement in the writing process. It wasn't as disciplined. No, that's a stupid word. It wasn't as...
It wasn't
You went in
the
without a
deadline.
map.
What?
You went in without a map.
I went without a map, yes.
It wasn't on the schedule of the TV. It wasn't on the
No,
deadline.
not at all.
Right.
No.
What was your first pitch when you got it? What was the first script you did?
Did for this?
No, in the business when you started out.
The first pitch I ever did.
I mean, well, how did you? I mean, what was your first script that you worked on? Do you remember?
You mean the first time I ever got hired to do
Yeah.
something? I worked with a friend of mine for Roger Corman's brother, Gene Corman,
Wow.
on a movie called Fly Me, which is about what do you call it? Stewardesses. A sex comedy about stewardesses. And I worked all summer. I worked, I think, 6 months on that for $600.
That's street
Wow.
cred. It wasn't
That's
just Roger,
street
it wasn't just Roger Corman. It was Roger Corman's brother.
Brother.
Yeah, that is sweet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah, and it never got made.
No.
Oh, I was gonna go home and look for it on
But
Netflix.
the check cleared. The $600 check
I
cleared.
think I got paid in cash.
Oh, big
Oh,
better.
even better.
Yeah.
$50 a week or something.
Speaking of that, I remember you mentioned last night that a lot of stuff you wish could have been kept got put on the cutting room floor. Is there anything you really wish could have been kept that you think would have maybe just made it a little more dynamic or whatever it would have added to the film.
Well, there was a sequence in which these two people are living together in his apartment. They're sleeping together in his apartment, and it's wintertime, and the landlord comes to kick them out of the apartment. And Douglas, the lead character, goes down to talk to the landlord, and the woman, Grace, is left in the bed smoking, and she's looking, and the guitars and the drums and stuff are all set up. And she looks at that stuff, and she gets up out of bed, it's very cold, and she picks up a Fender Jaguar, turns the thing on, and starts to picking at this and seeing what it feels like. And she feels that she doesn't belong there, and that she can't go there. And she puts it very gingerly back in on the rack and leaves. And I wish that could have been in there. I think that said a lot about her character and where women were at that time. And that's something I really miss. And there was a lot more stuff of him and his friend, the African American guy at the golf course. There was more of that. I wish I could have kept that.
I like Lisa Lampanelli.
Oh, she's
And
fantastic.
I didn't even know
There was
that-
more of her,
I didn't
too.
recognize her. She
Was there
fantastic.
more Brad Garrett?
No, there was only Brad Garrett, just that one.
Just the
Uh,
one?
yeah.
'Cause it seemed, I thought maybe there was another scene with him. 'cause he
No, there
came
was
in
just
and-
that one, but there was more Lisa Lampanelli.
And James Gandolfini, they were so great.
Yeah, well, they were. I always thought those two would be good. They don't say
So
a
we-
word to say to each other.
Right.
But I always thought that those two actors should work together.
They just to me seemed like the quintessential parents that were, they had this somewhat rebellious son and just.
Well,
Just so
Lisa was not the
surprising, yeah.
mother. Lisa was an aunt. The mother
Oh,
was
yeah.
the
Who's
mother
the
was a woman
mom?
named Molly Price.
She was fantastic
She's good.
too.
She's
Lisa
good.
was the aunt that says rock and roll keeps you young.
Keeps you young, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, the mom was awesome too.
She's really Molly. She's really good. She was on Third Watch. I don't know if you ever saw that
Yeah.
show. I know she used to be
Okay.
on it.
There's an amazing diversity of music that's incorporated into the movie. It's not just the usual suspects where, you pull out the usual Byrds and usual Rolling Stones and that sort of thing. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about particular acts or songs from the era that you felt really belonged in the movie that weren't necessarily big top 40 hits, or then you won't hear them,
Pretty Ballerina is one of them.
Yeah, Left Bank.
Left Bank.
Yeah.
Down Solo by Mother Earth. I thought that belonged in there. I never did get the real Kink song that I wanted. I never really got it in the movie. Just couldn't justify it.
Which one was that?
Probably See My Friends.
Oh.
I think there's no Birds and there's no Cream. I think that's sort of there was just no room for it. But I regret it.
Well, you've got Eric Clapton on an album cover.
I have
So-
Well, it's hard because Marty Scorsese's taken all the. I heard "Sympathy for the Devil" in a movie recently, and I said you can't use it anymore. It seems it's like it's been it's so iconically
Yeah.
been
Well, I think
taken and put in a there's some songs that just you can't take anymore.
I believe that when you go to clear Rolling Stones music, you have to ask Marty Scorsese.
It's in that hard when so there are some songs that have been so closely identified. In
No, I know
films,
that.
and so-
I know that. Give Me Shelter is
Right.
he's the best rock and roll song.
Right, right.
And I think Marty's used that.
Yeah.
couple times.
Oh.
Departures,
least.
Casino,
Yeah, those are the
and-
parts.
right,
And
yeah.
Mean Streets.
It's in.
No, it couldn't have been in Mean Streets.
Give
Could
me,
it?
Give Me Shelter's in Flight. That's where.
Oh,
that's
that's
what
what
it
I
was.
said recently,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was,
But you could use that song in any movie. It's the greatest song ever written. So.
Now I like the I was discussing this with Perry. I like that you went with the Stones and their bluesy sound, because when you think of which I don't, but when you think of the '60s rock and roll, most people think the Beatles, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the Stones, I think I don't know if they're given enough credit. But what is
Yeah,
they are.
they're
but,
starved for
Very
attention.
obscure.
but on the scene, now they're I think more famous. I don't know. But I love their sound a little better
Me
too.
too.
And is
Well,
that why
look,
chose
I
it?
love the Beatles. I was crazy about the Beatles, and I probably at the time played them equally.
You end the movie on the Beatles. In the
I-
credits.
Yeah, that's a whole other story.
And-
That's the next question then.
But
Yeah.
Well, and he goes, hey, what's this? That's really the first kind of when he hears the Beatles
what is
song.
that? What is
Yeah.
that? Is the
Yeah.
Beatles?
But
Yeah.
they were inspired though by more by the Stones though. It's
You know,
but
the
their
Stones,
sound,
I
don't
think
you
the Stones,
Like
the band in the movie?
The band in the
They were.
movie.
They were.
Yeah.
I was my intention to have them be more, I wanted to make a connection between white teen America and African American Delta blues. I wanted to show that the music, that what happened in that period was that the music of the period came from the Mississippi Delta, really came from sort of the least valued people in our society, changed the world through a white microphone or something, but that's what I was trying to sort of point out. But what were you
I
had
like
said
that.
something else that was interesting though about Stones, or
What did I say? That they're starting. That they're. Oh, I don't.
you love their sound.
I love their sound.
The
'cause
sound
I
is
love
great.
that like bluesy kind of. It's kind of sexy.
It's
to
more
me.
sexy.
I don't know.
I was just
yeah.
gonna say a lot more sexy.
And I
It
don't
is more.
think
It's
of-
more.
I think
It's
of
more
Beatles.
dangerous. It's
Yeah.
more. It's,
I
I
think
think
of
of
Beatles are like
Beatles
clean
is pop,
cut.
and I think of Stones
they
is
more
what rock
Jersey?
and roll is.
The
Yeah.
Stones?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say.
I think parents probably approved way more of the Beatles than they did of the Rolling Stones. Yeah.
Well, the Rolling Stones, you know, they cultivated that whole bad boy thing, and I think that's why another reason, aside from the fact that the Beatles are harder musically to emulate. I mean, for a kid who's 17 years old and learning to play the guitar, it's easier to learn those blues power chords than it is to learn that, you know, Paul McCartney bass line or those harmonies are really tough. That was another
I didn't
reason
even
why
think of that.
they really are hard. That George Martin stuff is pretty heady material, and the Beatles themselves is what they brought to it. The Stones is like simpler blues influenced music, and I think the attitude also was appealed to young boys.
Well, that scene when he was singing "Time on Your Side," I mean, that song was, you know, the. Well, I know, was he singing it?
He was singing.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah,
he
was
did
singing
sing it.
He was singing it. Yeah.
Oh,
He
right.
sang. He did all
He's
all of his
fantastic.
vocals, and Jack Houston did all of the backing vocals, and also sang lead. When he was singing lead in the Kinks song, he was really singing.
Wow.
The instrumentalists were Max Weinberg, Gary Tallent, and Bob Bandiera.
Cool.
Pardon the interruption, but that's all the time we have.
Okay.
I want the story about why it ends with the Beatles.
Thank God I opened my fucking mouth. Now I don't have to tell you.
Was James Garner really